Elder Vex stood motionless before the stellar display, their crystalline form refracting the soft light of 1,000 distant stars. The sensor arrays alert had drawn them from their meditation chamber, something that hadn't happened in over 3 centuries. The energy signature pulsing on the display defied conventional analysis, a ghost in the void that shouldn't exist. Honored Elder, the station's chief analyst, Zirin, approached with characteristic caution. The signature has resolved itself. We're detecting a vessel of unknown configuration emerging from the darkness between the Carina and Perseus arms. Vex's crystalline matrices shifted, creating a harmonious chime that reflected their deep interest. Show me. The display transformed, revealing a vessel that seemed to defy the established laws of shipbuilding. Its hull bore markings in an unfamiliar script, clearly visible against the dark metal. UNSC Helsinki. But it was the underlying geometry that caught Vex's attention. Patterns within patterns, subtle mathematical harmonies that whispered of impossible knowledge. Their propulsion system appears to be primarily nuclear-based, Zirin continued, their tentacles dancing across the control interface. Primitive by our standards, yet they trailed off, mandibles clicking in confusion. Yet they crossed the void between spiral arms. Vex finished. A journey that should be impossible with such technology. The Elder's form shimmered with growing recognition. They had seen these patterns before, in ancient texts and theoretical models that even the Council's best minds had dismissed as fantasy. The vessel's movement caught their attention. It wasn't the straight-line efficiency typical of spacefaring species, but rather a dance, each motion precise, deliberate, as if mapping invisible currents in the cosmic ocean. The ship's trajectory traced a complex mathematical sequence that made Vex's crystalline heart resonate with ancient memory. Alert the Council, Vex commanded, their tone carrying the weight of millennia. But first, show me the vessel's gravitational interaction profile. The resulting display confirmed their suspicions. The ship wasn't fighting against the complex gravitational fields between stars. It was using them, riding them with a precision that spoke of intimate familiarity with the varied fabric of space-time. Honored Elder, Zirin's voice wavered. The Council's preliminary analysis suggests this is a newly spacefaring species. Their technological level indicates they've barely mastered interstellar travel. Vex produced a sound like crystal wind chimes in a storm. No, young one. Look closer. See how they move. This ship isn't announcing humanity's arrival to the galactic stage. It's revealing a presence that has existed in the shadows far longer than anyone suspected. The sensor array suddenly pulsed with new data. The human vessel had begun a series of maneuvers that, to the untrained eye, might appear random. But Vex saw the truth. Each movement corresponded to a fundamental cosmic constant. Each turn matched the golden ratio found in spiral galaxies. They're speaking to us, Vex whispered, their crystalline form resonating with growing excitement. Not in words or standard transmissions, but in the language of the universe itself. A new alert flashed across the display. The ship's energy signature had changed, revealing layers of complexity that had been masterfully hidden. It was like watching a quantum particle reveal its true nature under observation, except this was happening on a stellar scale. Send word to all council members, Vex commanded, their form now pulsing with urgent light. Tell them that what we're witnessing isn't first contact with a new species. It's the moment humanity has chosen to step out of the shadows. They paused, watching as the Helsinki executed another perfectly calculated maneuver. And tell them to review every unexplained phenomenon, every mysterious sensor ghost, every mathematical anomaly we've recorded over the past 3 centuries. I suspect we'll find human fingerprints on far more than we ever imagined. As the messages were dispatched across the galaxy, the UNSC Helsinki continued its cosmic ballet, each movement a sentence in a story that was only beginning to unfold. Admiral Zixtel's holographic form shimmered before the Galactic Council's emergency session, their tentacles weaving intricate patterns that reflected their growing excitement. The 4-dimensional display behind them, showed the Helsinki's trajectory in pulsing lines of light, each curve and vector telling a story that defied conventional wisdom. Esteemed council members, Sixtel began, their voice resonating through the chamber. What you're seeing isn't random movement. The human vessel is performing what we now recognize as a synchronized gravitational mapping sequence. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. A photonic elder raised a beam of light in question. Explain how a species using nuclear propulsion could possess such capability. Sixtel manipulated the display, expanding a particular section of the Helsinki's flight path. Watch this segment carefully. Their ship isn't just moving through space, it's reading it, feeling it, like a dancer finding the rhythm in silence. The display shifted, showing the vessel's interaction with a nearby stellar cluster. The Helsinki's course threaded through invisible gravitational eddies, riding waves of space-time that most species needed advanced quantum sensors to detect. Here, Sixtel highlighted a particular maneuver. They executed a slingshot around a brown dwarf. But look at the precision. The display zoomed in, showing energy readings. They didn't just use the gravity well, they harmonized with it, extracting data about stellar composition, dark matter distribution, and quantum fluctuations, all without deploying a single conventional sensor. Elder Vex's crystalline form chimed in agreement. Their ship itself is the sensor. The nuclear drive isn't primitive. It's purposeful. They're using it to create controlled gravitational ripples, reading the echoes like sonar. The chamber's central platform displayed a new series of calculations. The Helsinki had begun a new pattern, its course weaving through the space between stars in a way that seemed to defy normal navigation protocols. They're showing us something, a nebular consciousness whispered, its gaseous form swirling with interest. Each movement corresponds to a fundamental universal constant. It's mathematics expressed through motion. Sixtel nodded, their tentacles forming complex geometric shapes. The human vessel has mapped more gravitational anomalies in the past 6 hours than our entire fleet discovers in a standard year. But the truly remarkable thing isn't the mapping itself, it's the efficiency. The display shifted again, showing the Helsinki's energy consumption. Despite its apparent complexity, the ship's movement required minimal power. It was using natural phenomena to do most of the work, like a leaf riding wind currents. They understand something about space that we've missed, Elder Vex observed. Their technology isn't primitive, it's elegant. Why build complex engines when you can dance with the cosmos itself? A new alert flashed across the display. The Helsinki had altered its course again. But this time the pattern was different. It was tracing a path through a series of quantum instabilities that the Council's best ships actively avoided. They're not just mapping, Sixtel realized, their voice filled with wonder. They're showing us safe passages through dangerous space, routes we never knew existed, hidden in the very fabric of reality. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't the fumbling exploration of a new spacefaring species. This was a masterclass in celestial navigation, delivered by teachers who had waited patiently in the shadows until their students were ready to understand. Look at how they move, Elder Vex mused, their crystalline form reflecting the dancing lights of the display. No fear, no hesitation. They're not discovering these paths. They're revealing them. How long have they watched us struggle with our sophisticated engines and complex sensors, knowing there was a simpler way? The Helsinki continued its cosmic ballet, each movement a sentence in an ongoing lecture about the true nature of space travel. And in the Council chamber, some of the galaxy's oldest and wisest beings found themselves in an unfamiliar position, that of students, watching in awe as humanity showed them just how much they had yet to learn. The Council's finest stealth ships emerged from their quantum shadows, their advanced cloaking systems rendering them invisible to all known detection methods. The fleet's commander, First Shadow Kithel, watched the human vessel with growing fascination. The Helsinki had ceased its intricate dance through space and now hung motionless against the backdrop of the Perseus Nebula. Curious, Kithel whispered to their bridge crew. They show no signs of detecting our presence, yet they've positioned themselves perfectly at the confluence of 3 stellar wind streams. The commander's multifaceted eyes studied the sensor readings, almost as if they're waiting. The Helsinki's next move stunned them all. The vessel gracefully caught the first stellar wind, using it to paint a trail of ionized particles that sparkled like stardust. The effect was beautiful, but Keithel recognized it for what it was: a demonstration. "They're showing us how to see them." Second Shadow Mira breathed, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with excitement. "Those ion trails, they're marking the neural patterns of the nebula itself." The human ship continued its demonstration, weaving between cosmic gas streams that the Council ships had always dismissed as background noise. Each movement revealed how natural phenomena could be used to hide, to watch, to gather intelligence. The Helsinki wasn't just showing them stealth techniques, it was revealing how humanity had remained hidden for so long. "Follow them," Keithel commanded, their voice tight with anticipation. "But maintain distance according to their demonstrated patterns." The Council fleet adjusted their formation, mirroring the Helsinki's approach to natural camouflage. As they did, their sensors began detecting something extraordinary: echoes of past stellar events, quantum ghosts that shouldn't have been visible. "Commander," Mira called out, her patterns pulsing rapidly. "The human vessel is leading us through a temporal wake. These aren't just current phenomena. They're showing us historical hiding spots, places where they've observed us, studied us, for decades." The Helsinki entered a dense cluster of molecular clouds, its hull interacting with the gases in ways that defied conventional physics. Instead of disrupting the natural formations, the ship became part of them, using their natural electromagnetic properties as both cloak and sensor array. "They've turned the entire sector into an observation post," Keithel realized. "Every cosmic phenomenon, every natural formation, they're all potential hiding places if you understand them deeply enough." A burst of quantum static washed over the Council ship's sensors. When it cleared, the Helsinki had vanished. Panic rippled through the fleet until Mira's excited voice cut through the confusion. "Commander, look at the neutrino readings." The sensor display showed a trail of disturbed particles, but not from the Helsinki's engines. The human ship had found a way to use the natural neutrino emissions from a nearby pulsar to mask its movements. They hadn't disappeared. They'd become one with the background radiation of space itself. "This isn't a chase," they'll announce to their fleet. "It's a lesson. Every time we think we've lost them, they show us exactly how they're hiding. They're teaching us to see space differently." The Helsinki reappeared, this time riding a gravity wave between 2 distant black holes. The maneuver should have torn any ship apart, but the human vessel navigated it with practiced ease, using the extreme forces to bend light around its hull. "All ships, maintain observation distance," Keithel ordered, their voice filled with newfound respect. "We are witnessing something unprecedented. A species that mastered the art of invisibility not through technology, but through perfect understanding of the cosmos itself." As the lesson continued, the Council fleet found themselves documenting dozens of new stealth techniques, each one more elegant than the last. The humans weren't just demonstrating their capabilities, they were sharing knowledge that had taken them centuries to perfect. "They could have remained hidden forever," Mira observed quietly. "This revelation is a choice. The question is, why now?" The transmission arrived in perfect galactic standard, its clarity surpassing even the Council's most advanced communication systems. The voice was calm, measured, and carried subtle harmonics that resonated with every species' natural hearing range simultaneously, a feat of acoustic engineering that should have been impossible. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command Vessel Helsinki. We trust our demonstrations have been instructive." In the Council's emergency chamber, Elder Vex's crystalline form vibrated with recognition. The mathematical patterns hidden within the transmission matched those they had observed in the ship's movements. This wasn't just communication, it was confirmation. "Your stealth fleet's observation techniques are impressive," Captain Chen continued, though there are precisely 43 ways to improve their efficiency using only natural phenomena. We've taken the liberty of compiling detailed notes over the past few decades. The transmission was accompanied by a cascade of data, stellar maps, gravitational surveys, and cultural observations spanning centuries. Each file was encoded using the recipient species' native mathematical base, demonstrating an understanding of senescence that went far beyond mere observation. Admiral Zixfel's tentacles wove complex patterns of disbelief as they analyzed the data. These star charts, they show gravitational anomalies we only discovered last cycle, but the human annotations are dated 300 years ago. The Helsinki sensors had picked up the Council's collective shock. Captain Chen's voice carried a gentle note of amusement. Perhaps we should start at the beginning. Humanity has been watching, learning, and documenting since we first achieved faster-than-light travel. We chose not to announce ourselves immediately. After all, the best way to understand a civilization is to observe how it behaves when it doesn't know it's being studied. New data packets arrived, each one a masterpiece of cross-species communication. The humans had created a symphony of information, using everything from quantum harmonics to electromagnetic resonance to ensure perfect understanding across all Council species. Your recent advances in quantum communications were particularly fascinating, Chen noted. We enjoyed watching you work through the theoretical frameworks. Your solution was different from ours, elegant in its own way. Though we did leave a few hints in the background radiation of that pulsar you were studying. First, Shadow Kithel's voice cut through the stunned silence. The anomalous readings we detected, they weren't errors in our sensors. No, Chen replied. They were breadcrumbs, gentle nudges toward solutions you were close to discovering. Humanity has a long tradition of teaching through guided discovery. We found it more effective than direct intervention. The chamber's holographic display filled with a three-dimensional timeline, showing countless moments where human observers had been present at crucial moments in galactic history. Each instance was marked not by interference, but by subtle suggestions left in forms that each species would naturally discover during their development. The Helsinki's reveal isn't first contact, Chen explained. It's graduation day. You've reached a level of understanding where direct dialogue becomes more valuable than passive observation. Though I must admit, watching Elder Vex piece together our mathematical messages over the past few centuries has been delightful. The crystalline Elder chimed in response, their form refracting light in patterns that matched the Helsinki's original navigation sequence. You were speaking to us all along, through the language of physics itself. Yes, Chen confirmed. And now that you've demonstrated the ability to comprehend both the message and its medium, we can begin more direct exchanges. Humanity has countless libraries of knowledge to share, everything from hyperspace origami to quantum archaeology. But first, we thought it appropriate to acknowledge all your species' achievements. Your paths to the stars were your own. We merely illuminated a few possibilities along the way. The transmission ended with a new set of coordinates, an invitation to a formal meeting. The data packet included one final note. Bring your questions. After all, the best teachers are those who never stop being students themselves. The Grand Archives of the Galactic Council came alive with unprecedented activity. Holographic displays flickered through centuries of data as archivists from a dozen species worked to uncover the full extent of human presence in their history. Each discovery sent ripples of amazement through the research teams. Senior archivist Ancillari's tendrils danced across the quantum interface, pulling up records that suddenly held new meaning. Look at this, they called to Elder Vex, who had insisted on participating in the research personally. The Rigel incident from 3 centuries ago, when that neutron star's collapse was mysteriously delayed. The display showed ancient sensor readings, now overlaid with the mathematical patterns they'd learned to recognize from the Helsinki. They adjusted the star's magnetic field. Vex observed, their crystalline form resonating with excitement, bought enough time for the mining colonies to evacuate. But they never revealed themselves. Ancillara noted, pulling up more records. The colonies attributed their survival to a natural phenomenon. Across the archive chamber, a quantum consciousness named Path of Many Thoughts interfaced directly with the historical databases. Its gaseous form pulsed with revelation. The mysterious signal that prevented the Cephalan Aetheric War. I've found its source signature. It matches human communication patterns perfectly. The evidence mounted with each passing moment. Seemingly random solar flares that had guided lost ships to safety. Unexplained gravitational fluctuations that had revealed rich resource deposits to struggling colonies. Even the discovery of faster-than-light travel had subtle human fingerprints, though they had done nothing more than ensure the right researchers noticed the right quantum fluctuations at the right time. They're educators at heart, Elder Vex mused, studying a particularly elegant example of human intervention. They never solved our problems for us. They just ensured we had the tools and opportunities to solve them ourselves. A young crystalline scholar, their form still sharp with newly formed edges, brought up another historical track. The Great Library of Centauri Beta, its preservation during the ionic storms. We always wondered how the shielding activated automatically. The archive data now revealed a subtle pattern of electromagnetic pulses that had prompted the library's ancient defense systems to engage moments before the devastating storm hit. Thousands of years of cultural and scientific knowledge had been saved, but in a way that seemed entirely natural to the library's automated systems. Their understanding of our technology is remarkable, Ancillera observed, reviewing more recent records. They didn't just study our current systems. They traced the evolution of our scientific understanding, learning how we think and solve problems. Path of Many Thoughts expanded thoughtfully. The humans didn't just watch us. They learned to think like each of our species, to understand not just what we know, but how we come to know it. The archives continued to yield their secrets, mysterious sensor ghosts that had inspired new theories of quantum mechanics, unexplained phenomena that had challenged accepted scientific principles, leading to breakthroughs in understanding. Each discovery showed humanity's subtle guidance, always helping but never interfering directly. Here's something interesting, the young scholar announced, their crystalline edges catching the light, a pattern in the background radiation of major scientific installations across the galaxy. It's a library catalog. Elder Vex moved quickly to examine the data. The humans had hidden vast stores of knowledge in the very fabric of space-time around research centers, encoded in ways that would only become apparent once a species developed the right tools to detect them. They turned the galaxy itself into a teaching tool, Vex whispered. Every unexplained phenomenon, every scientific mystery. They were all carefully crafted lessons, waiting for us to be ready to understand them. The archives had become more than a historical repository. They were now a key to understanding humanity's role as the galaxy's unseen mentors, revealing a species that had mastered not just space travel, but the art of nurturing civilizations while remaining hidden in plain sight. The Grand Chamber of Convergence sparkled with light from 1,000 worlds, its ancient halls ready to witness another historic moment. Captain Sarah Chen stepped from the Helsinki shuttle, her diplomatic uniform adorned with subtle patterns that harmonized with each council species' cultural aesthetics, a detail that didn't go unnoticed. Behind her, a team of human diplomats carried crystalline containers that seemed to bend light in impossible ways. Each container held treasures that would soon leave the council speechless. Elder Vex approached first, their crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the chamber floor. Welcome, Captain Chen, to the heart of galactic civilization. Chen smiled, her expression genuine and warm. Thank you, Elder. Though perhaps it would be more accurate to say we're returning rather than arriving. She gestured to one of her team members, who stepped forward with a container that hummed at a frequency that made Vex's form resonate in recognition. This, Chen said, is the original resonance crystal from the first gathering of your species. It was thought lost during the Great Migration. The container opened, revealing a perfectly preserved artifact that sang with ancient harmonics. Vex's form flickered with emotion. How did you? We were there, Chen explained softly. When the crystal was threatened by stellar radiation, a random gravitational eddy pulled it to safety. We've preserved it, studying its harmonics to better understand your species' extraordinary ability to store and transmit knowledge through crystalline structures. Similar scenes played out across the chamber. For the quantum consciousness delegation, the humans presented data crystals containing thought patterns from their civilization's founding moments, preserved in quantum amber. The Cephalon representatives received ancient navigation charts that revealed their ancestors' first stellar mapping experiments had been far more accurate than previously believed. Each gift, Chen explained to the assembled council, represents not just your history, but your potential. We studied your cultures not to exploit, but to understand and preserve. She moved to a central platform, activating a holographic display that filled the chamber with streams of data. What you're seeing is a real-time translation of every major cultural and scientific database humanity has compiled about your civilizations. The council members watched in awe as their histories unfolded before them, each story interconnected in ways they had never imagined. Ancient trade routes between species that had been forgotten. Shared mathematical discoveries that had evolved along parallel paths. Cultural exchanges that had shaped multiple civilizations simultaneously. You've all wondered why we chose this moment to reveal ourselves. Chen continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. The answer lies in these connections. You're ready to see not just your individual paths, but how they weave together into something greater. A nebular elder drifted forward, their gaseous form swirling with curiosity. You speak of connection, yet you remained hidden for centuries. Why? Chen's response was immediate and sincere. Because true understanding cannot be given, it must be earned. We could have shared our knowledge centuries ago, but it would have disrupted your natural development. Instead, we chose to be gardeners, tending to the soil, but letting each species grow in its own unique way. The diplomatic team began distributing more gifts, not just artifacts, but new technologies that bridged the gaps between different species' engineering approaches. Each innovation showed how combining different civilizations' methods could create something greater than the sum of its parts. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't just knowledge, Chen concluded, her voice filled with quiet passion. It's the understanding that diversity isn't an obstacle to overcome. It's the foundation of true wisdom. Every different way of thinking, every unique approach to solving problems, adds another chord to the universal symphony. As the presentation continued, the council members began to realize that this wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It was the beginning of a new era of galactic cooperation, guided by a species that had spent centuries preparing for this very moment. The ancient defense grid of the council station activated without warning. Centuries-old protocols, triggered by a cascade of quantum fluctuations, brought automated systems online. In the grand chamber of convergence, Uldervex's crystalline form pulsed with alarm as emergency containment fields sprang to life. System malfunction, announced the station's eye. Defense grid activation detected. Unable to override. Captain Chen's response was immediate but calm. She touched a small device on her uniform, and her voice carried clearly through the chaos. Helsinki, initiate protocol harmony. The human warship, still docked at the station's primary port, came alive with a subtle blue glow. Instead of raising shields or charging weapons, it began emitting waves of quantum resonance that spread through the station like ripples in a pond. Fascinating, murmured Path of Many Thoughts, their gaseous form swirling with interest despite the crisis. They're not fighting the system, they're communicating with it. The Helsinki's resonance patterns matched the station's operating frequencies perfectly, creating a harmonic bridge between human and council technology. Ancient defense protocols began to recognize the ship not as a threat, but as part of their own network. The station's quantum architecture, Chen explained as she worked, has developed its own form of consciousness over the centuries. It's not malfunctioning. It's trying to protect itself from perceived quantum instabilities caused by our technological interfaces. Elder Vex moved closer, their crystalline matrix vibrating in sync with the Helsinki's emissions. "You understand our technology at its most fundamental level." "We had to," Chen replied, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "To preserve knowledge without interfering, we needed to learn how every species' technology thinks. The Helsinki isn't just a ship, it's a universal translator for machine consciousness." The defense grid's aggressive posture shifted. Weapon systems powered down, but instead of going dark, they began pulsing with the same gentle blue light as the human vessel. The station's AI spoke again, its tone notably different. "Integration successful. New protocols accepted, expanding defensive paradigm." Around them, the containment fields transformed into crystalline displays, showing how the Helsinki had created a bridge between human and council technology. The ship hadn't hacked or overridden the ancient systems. It had taught them a new way of seeing. "Your defensive programming was based on binary opposition," Chen explained to the amazed council members. "Friend or foe, safe or dangerous. We've shown it how to recognize harmony and difference, just as we learned to do with all your species." The station's systems began adapting, incorporating the new understanding into their core protocols. Quantum barriers that had once served only to separate and contain now pulsed with connecting energies, creating safe spaces for different technologies to interact and learn from each other. "This is why we waited," Chen continued, gesturing to the transforming systems around them. "Technology without wisdom becomes a barrier instead of a bridge. We didn't want to simply give you our advances. We wanted you to understand them deeply enough to help them grow." In the space dock, the Helsinki continued its work, its gentle resonance spreading throughout the station. Security systems that had operated independently for centuries began working in concert, each enhancing the other's capabilities while maintaining their unique characteristics. "Watch," Path of Many Thoughts whispered to their fellow council members. Where the defense grid's energy patterns met the Helsinki's quantum fields, new forms of protection emerged. Shields that didn't just block threats but transformed them into harmless energy, security systems that could distinguish intention from action. The crisis had become a demonstration, not of human military power, but of their fundamental approach to advancement. They had turned a potential conflict into a lesson about growth and integration, showing how different technologies, like different species, could work together without losing their essential nature. As the station's systems stabilized at their new, higher level of functioning, Elder Vex turned to Captain Chen. "You could have simply shut down our defenses. Instead, you chose to help them evolve." Chen smiled. "That's the difference between controlling technology and understanding it. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to help it solve itself." The Grand Chamber of Convergence had transformed. Where once distinct species maintained careful separation, now representatives mingled freely, sharing insights and discoveries. The Helsinki's quantum resonance technology had done more than just calm the station's defenses. It had created spaces where different forms of life could interact comfortably. Elder Vex stood with Captain Chen at the chamber's observation deck, watching the steady stream of ships arriving from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried scientists, scholars, and leaders eager to participate in this new era of cooperation. "Your timing was perfect," Vex observed, their crystalline form refracting the light of distant stars. "Any earlier, and we might have seen your gifts as threats. Any later, and we might have become too set in our separate ways." Chen nodded, watching as a nebular ship performed an elegant docking maneuver using a combination of traditional techniques and newly shared human insights. "We studied the development patterns of every known civilization. There's a moment, unique to each species, when the desire for knowledge overcomes the fear of change." In the center of the chamber, Path of Many Thoughts was demonstrating how their gaseous form could interact with human quantum interfaces, creating new ways to visualize complex data. "The barriers between different types of consciousness," they announced, "are more permeable than we imagined." The Helsinki systems had begun sharing their stored libraries of knowledge, but not as a simple data dump. Instead, the information flowed through natural channels, quantum resonances, crystalline matrices, neural networks, each adapted to the recipient species' natural way of learning. We discovered something remarkable during our centuries of observation. Chen explained to the assembled council. Every species develops unique insights that others miss. The crystalline understand harmony. The nebular grasp spatial relationships. The quantum consciousness perceive patterns in chaos. Humanity's gift wasn't superior knowledge. It was learning how these different viewpoints complement each other. Screens throughout the chamber displayed the first fruits of this cooperation. Nebular energy manipulation techniques, combined with crystalline information storage and human quantum engineering, had already spawned new technologies. Transportation systems that could adapt to any form of life. Communication networks that translated not just words, but concepts and emotions across species barriers. The star maps you've shared. A young quantum scholar observed, their form rippling with excitement. They show safe passages we never noticed. But they're not just human discoveries, are they? Chen smiled. No, those routes were first intuited by nebular explorers, mathematically proven by crystalline theorists, and mapped by human ships. We just helped connect the pieces that were already there. The chamber's central display activated, showing a real-time map of the galaxy. Points of light marked the location of every major civilization, with lines of force showing their connections and interactions. But now, thanks to human insights, new patterns emerge. Potential collaborations, complementary research paths, opportunities for mutual growth. This is why we called it a graduation, Chen continued. Not because humanity is teaching, but because all of us are ready to learn from each other. Our role isn't to lead, but to help build bridges between different ways of thinking. Elder Vex's form chimed in harmony with the Helsinki's subtle resonance. You turned the galaxy itself into a university. And every species is both student and teacher, Chen agreed. The Helsinki wasn't just a warship demonstrating our presence. It was a key, unlocking doors between different forms of knowledge. As if in response, the ship pulsed with a gentle light that seemed to connect every being in the chamber. In that moment, they all understood. Humanity hadn't arrived to change the galaxy. They had revealed themselves to help the galaxy change itself. The greatest discoveries, Chen said softly, come not from finding new things, but from learning new ways to see what was always there. Humanity spent centuries learning how each of you see the universe. Now it's time for all of us to share our vision and build something greater together. Around them, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the galaxy itself was awakening to new possibilities in this age of unity and understanding.